I just got a very profound reminder from this event of how we're all sovereign, free beings in our natural state. And we're expressions of creation, and no one can ever take that away from us. And even if you're thrown in a cage, you're still spiritually free, because you might have lost your physical freedom, but you haven't lost your spiritual freedom, because no other man or woman can take that away from you. We have natural God-given rights from creation that aren't granted by any human, any man or woman. And they have nothing to do with statutes or decrees that are written on pieces of paper and that can somehow magically become law, in inverted commas, according to the whims and the preferences of certain individuals or certain groups of individuals. You know, rights come from creation, and paramount in our God-given rights is the right to be left alone, free of incursion or violation, just so long as our actions do not cause harm or loss to another living sentient being. Do no harm. If they don't, there's no problem, and that's a right. That's right action and right behaviour.
Yeah.
And what I witnessed at Acapulco was a group of people who very deeply comprehend this, and they just want to live their lives in that way. They don't wish to hurt anyone, and in turn, they don't expect to be hurt themselves. They expect to be left alone to live their life as they choose. And that is how we should all be living, outside of any entity called government. So when you frame it that way, you come to realise that there is no legitimacy whatsoever to government, to having these self-appointed rulers who feel they've got the right to tell us what to do when we're harming no one. And it becomes your duty to live in truth and freedom when you come to these understandings, and also to resist these incursions and these claims on your free sovereign being to the extent as it's in your power to do so. So I left with a very profound sense of these things. I kind of understood these things before, of course, but they were very strongly reinforced and cemented in my mind as a result of this event. And the other thing is that this experience made me realize how valuable and sacred our personal freedoms are. And of course, we already have many restrictions placed on them, so nobody would have got to an Acapulco if they were coming from outside of Mexico without having to present a passport, because you can't cross these imaginary borders that are called state lines or national lines if you don't have this magical booklet granted to you by government, right? So we kind of have to cooperate with that if we want to travel. And if you want to drive a car, you have to have a license, of course. And many of us have the fruits of our labour extorted from us, stolen from us in the form of tax. Of course, there are ways of avoiding that, but many people can't avoid it. So, yes, we have these things applied in our lives against our will. But having said that, at least many of us, in your country and in mine at least, are still able to walk the land freely, go out in nature and enjoy everything it has to offer, choose who we associate and socialise with. Not so much in Australia now, right? Choose what we do with our leisure time. And, you know, I went for a swim in the ocean during one of the afternoons there, and it was just a beautiful thing. It just made me feel so free. It's just something that I wanted to do. I had every right to do it because I was doing no harm, and it was just a beautiful thing, just being at nature, taking a swim in the ocean. And it just brought it home to me how sacred that kind of freedom is. And many people through history have not been free to do that kind of thing as and when they choose. You know, not every generation has had those kind of privileges. And the way things are going, if it's not stopped, future generations may not be able to do that. I mean, imagine not being able to go and take a walk in the woods on a sunny afternoon if you choose to. Just going and sitting in a field somewhere, going for a swim in a river. Imagine not being able to do that because of some totalitarian regime that's forbidden it. Have you seen the movie 1984 starring John Hurt?
I've never seen the movie. I did read the book, though.
Yeah, it's based on George Orwell's novel, and this film version came out in 1984. But when you were speaking there, it just reminded me of a scene where you've got Winston, the protagonist of the story, and his girlfriend, Julia. They're together in this room, this bedroom, and they've just made love together, and they're envisaging freedom. They're just envisaging themselves in nature, in a forest, with the trees and all of this. And right at that very moment, a black helicopter appears outside the window, and armed thugs break down the door and arrest them for the crime of imagining freedom. And that, it seems, is where things are headed in this reality if we don't all come together and wake up pretty bloody sharpish and head it all off. And like I was saying, the whole experience in Mexico just made me realise how important our freedoms are to us. And we're losing them by the day.
Yeah.
I recognise that we're not as free as we should be anywhere near, but at least we have some freedoms left before they all get taken away from us. And this smart grid, AI, 5G, Internet of Things nightmare comes in, which is unfolding with every passing day. Just all comes back to the value of freedom and our natural rights within creation to live freely.